Hey, well, welcome to our Pillars talk about art and global missions. And I am really glad that you're here. And I'm also featuring one of my very, very best friends, Lisa Marten. And she has been all over the world, literally, as an artist in different capacities, as you will hear. So just very organically, grassroots, relationship-based travels through the beauty of art and serving people. And so thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative to be with you guys today.
Yeah. Me too. So the first thing I wanted to do, and I wrote some notes for myself just to make sure that I wasn't forgetting anything. But I'm so glad that you've given us permission to record tonight, because it's not always a given in our courses, like if we're going to have a Zoom meeting live like this, it's not always a given that we're going to record it and put it out there to future folks. And so we really had to think about that, because there are sensitive things that unfold during mission travels and ministry of any kind, even if it's local. So Lisa really thought about it, and I liked your thoughtful approach in every kind of ministry that you do. You're very thoughtful, and you make decisions with God. You don't take it lightly. So tonight, when I'm asking questions, or when we're sharing or whatever, Lisa naturally is always, like, when she goes on a trip, she doesn't only serve those people for that set amount of time, that week or that month or that year. She serves them before, during, and after, like even now. And so she's serving them by being cautious about her storytelling and doing it in a way that glorifies God and fosters a sense of privacy, and sometimes even protection, if that's what's needed, of the people that she served even 10 years ago. So I think that's amazing, and I love that posture. And it's not really that common. And I think that as art ministers, I was thinking about this, that we have two natural tendencies, which makes it hard for us to kind of like just protect people like that. Number one is our love of sharing story. Story, la, 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 even if it's not our story to tell. So that is a tendency that we can kind of check our heart about, and check, well, just, think of the person we're serving. Number two is our excitement to help people. And in our zeal, we can kind of go past, beyond wisdom or beyond discernment or whatever. But I like what you also said. You said even when we make a mistake, there's always grace.
There is.
God's there for us.
I think that the biggest part to remember for it, well, in ministry and just in general, is that we're partnering with God with what He's already doing. And when we're ministering to people, with people, we're coming alongside them and serving the setting, the people, the culture, whatever it is that we're being asked to do. And so it's a matter of being, cautious and sensitive in those settings, and being open for that. But it's always it's to me, it's kind of sobering in that we're partnering with God. He asks us, He invites us in, and so a huge part of it is listening to Him as to what He's asking of us, and listening to the people that we're connecting with, and what they need, not just coming with our own agendas or views on things, and actually being able to serve. So it's
it's a responsibility, but also it's partnering with the Lord, and he's the one who carries the burdens. We get to play with God,
Yeah.
and prefer other people at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is the preferring other people and recognizing the, in fact, you've said this many times, and is that it's, when we're doing this, it's doing ministry or missions work or anything, it's not about us.
Right.
And yet it's for us to be a part of. So it's not about like just completely removing ourselves and like, okay, God's doing his thing, or, you know, kind of thing. He has asked us to come and do it with him.
Yeah.
But to recognize that it's not about us. So oftentimes we have to check our motives on anything that we're doing or saying. And
Yeah.
and with the topic of art, and doing ministry and missions work, through creativity, it's a matter of checking our motives as to, is, you know, are we actually, are we making it about us, or are we,
Yeah.
you
Why
know,
am I telling this
I don't want to
story right
do,
now? Yeah.
I don't want to do art just for art's sake. When it comes to that, I want to actually come alongside people in what their needs are in that. And I think that goes along with any kind of ministry, missions work. When we are connecting with others, is recognizing what is it that they need and what is God asking of us. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start going on art missions?
That actually, it's been a part of my life since I was in high school. Actually, I got to go on a short-term trip with my local church at the time, and I was able to do ministry. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this before, but there was, in the 80s, it was a big deal to do clowning ministry. And I was a clown. And I got to do some stuff in other countries that way.
That's awesome.
And I learned a lot through that. But and then jumped ahead. It was in 2000 that I took a trip where I went with a team, and with the local church that I've been a part of here in Idaho, and got to experience doing missions through painting, actually. And I did a huge mural in a coffee shop, and that was kind of the start, I think. And it was kind of in me of that, but it took years. It took years. I think that, you know, timing is a whole lot of thing. Listening to God, the right way, the right place, the right people, all of that. And the timing that in 2000, and then I ended up going back to that place for about a year. I lived overseas and was living there and doing art and learning about doing ministry in a country that wasn't my own country. And through that process, it was the very first time I ever heard the name art minister spoken, and I did not know what that meant at all. I just knew, okay, I'm an artist, and I'm doing ministry, but I didn't know anything about that. But somebody had prayed for me, prayed over me with that, and it took years. And it wasn't until I met you, actually, that began to develop more in me, as to that. And as I through the years of working side by side with you, I'm sure they know about Vine Arts. Is that right? Yeah. So through Vine Arts, that I feel like I was trained up really, you know, strongly to know, you know, and it just kind of came together. And friends, people I had built relationship with back when I had lived overseas, began to ask me if I would come and do, because they knew what I was doing with you, and so they started asking me if I would come and do things, and so it kind of started to develop from that point. So
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah.
gosh, like 11 years ago or something like that, I
Yeah.
think, when
Yeah.
that officially started.
Right.
But yeah, so like art and ministry has been a part of my life for quite a long time, but doing traveling with it, it was kind of sporadic, and
Yeah.
then and it was even before I started doing things kind of on my own, that we had gone and done a trip together with a
Mhm.
team,
Yeah.
where we got to do a bunch of murals and stuff,
Overseas again.
overseas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of started it, and
Yeah.
realizing that this can happen, I could, okay, this is how this could happen, and stuff. But even that trip, it was all through relationship. And
Yeah.
what began to develop for me was, a lot of people will can connect into doing ministry and missions through their local churches, or through larger parachurch, missions organizations, and God kind of started to reveal to me that I had been building relationships through the years that were overseas.
Yeah.
And I had this, people started asking me to come to them. And so we just started to try it out and see how that would go. And each trip has developed on the next, kind of thing. But I do it all through relationship. People I already know who are doing things, connecting with, whether it's their, within their local church, whether it's they're a part of a missions organization, whether they're doing something within their local community. And so I have relationships with people who are already doing things, and all I'm doing is coming alongside what they're already doing, and ministering through creativity to the very people that they're already ministering to or desiring to minister to.
Yeah.
And so it's the way that I have kind of done it, how it has developed, I should say, is that it's not about me really doing my thing, and then I kind of create a schedule of that or something, but rather it's all based on relationship.
Yeah, you don't have like a website that says, book here or something, you're not, even when you send your newsletter out about these things, you're not like soliciting for more, like, hey, to hire me, or to have me come out. It's all friendship. It's people that it's people who are lay leaders, people who are pastors, and people outside of churches. And it's very organic, and it's based on trust and friendship, really, at its core, which is that's such a glorifying thing. Like, I mean, just side note, take friends seriously, you guys, because when we are loving and serving and helping people around us, friendships go such a long way to supporting what you're doing, but also just to testifying, like, to the world, how precious other people are. So don't discount the value of, or the importance of friends. That's a big deal. Yeah, that's really cool. And then can you tell them about the commissioning group?
Yes. So around about the time that I was really feeling the prompt from God that that the traveling aspect was something that was, I was going to be going and doing. I I have always believed that it's really important to have emotional and prayer support. Um, we obviously, you know, we want financial support for things we're doing or whatever, but I've recognized that one of the things I learned through um, leadership and ministry colleges that I've gone through is the importance um, of prayer support and like support for you, like emotionally as
Yeah.
you're going through things.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from an organization that's quite well known, actually, that that has a couple of books out that I read that talked about friend raising. In other words, instead of just raising support, as in financial stuff, the importance of building relationship with people, so that the people who are coming, as you're wanting to come alongside others through the ministry that you're doing, you want others to come alongside you. And part of that is that people really believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they know who you are. They support emotion, all of the things that you are actually doing, and believe in what God has called you into. And so a huge part of that for me was building a group around me that would be that for me. So I have actually a group of 12 people around me that are pastors, ministers, mentors that have known me for years, and highly support me, in just encouragement, prayer, lots of ways. And these are actually not people who financially support me. These are my, I would say, there's been many ways I've described this. Oftentimes people who are doing missions out of their local church or through another organization will have a missions board around them that are supporting them and praying for them in those kinds of ways, and helping them make accountable decisions and so on. And I don't have that. I'm actually outside of the local church, but with that, I have this group of 12 pastors and ministers and mentors around me that are there to encourage me and keep me accountable. And what I mean by that is that, I'm just not off doing my own thing, but rather I really am focused on the mission that God has called me to do. And so this group of people, they meet with me. I gather them together before I do a trip. And we talk about what's going to take place and what I'll be involved in. And then they get an opportunity to speak into that. Sometimes people get words and pictures and all kinds of stuff that I end up being able to take with me to the place I'm going, and be able to speak those words or share those pictures or whatever it may be. And so this group gets that opportunity to really be involved in that way. And while I'm gone on the trip, we message almost every day, I think it is most of the time, so that I'm checking in, I'm keeping them updated on what I'm doing and how it's going, and sharing conversations that might have taken place or different stuff. And they get an opportunity to speak into that also. And then once I've come home, then we gather again, and I get to debrief with them, and I talk through things, and we yeah, we kind of look at it, the good, the bad, all of it, and talk through them and pray and so on. And then it's a continued prayer process, because just because the physical in-person trip is over doesn't mean I stop my communications with the people I was just with, and so on. There's continued communication and checking in and praying and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is quite a, I find that important, because it's all a part of, again, it's not just about me. So recognizing that, that it's important to bring others in on what I'm doing, and that kind of thing. And getting feedback from people who you trust and who trust you, and also, I would say pretty much everybody who I have gone and served through art ministry, has really, really been so appreciative of the fact that I have this group of people, not only like for me, but that they know that there are some very specific people who are praying for them and who care for them so dearly, that that they're, because all the time I'm investing in on what I'm doing, so are the 12 who are around me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an honor to be asked to be part of a support, organization, a group like that, that is so centralized on taking the gospel someplace else where, like, I've never been. You've been to numerous countries overseas, and it's just really cool to not just other countries, but other locations. And it's so fascinating to watch. And she uses like a group, like within, either you can use like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, when there's not like texting phone rates outside of your country, you can use an app like that to keep in touch as a group. And that's what she's been doing for all these years. And even time zone differences, whatever, we've had some really cool meshing of, like, God wants you to check your phone right now, and there's some really cool opportunity to, like, just be there with Lisa, even though we're not together. It's just
like a lifeline. It really is. And it becomes, yeah, just really helpful. And I have found that, again, the importance of the before, the during, and the after of that connection. And it also helps me in my processing. I'm a journaler when I'm out doing stuff, and that kind of thing. I'm definitely journaling and everything, but being able to converse with the group about things helps me to process and work through things. Sometimes things happen that are really hard, and to be able to have other people there to bounce things off of, get them praying, get feedback, that sort of thing. Sometimes things are really incredibly fun, and just and it's just to have somebody to share with, that, again, that you trust, and that, once again, that this group is a confidential group, so they're not, they're recognizing the privacy of the people that I'm connecting with, and so on. And so it's not, yeah, so it just is really, it's important.
Yeah. How did you get to start? I know that God has been speaking to you for years now about something called perspectives. I mean, everyone knows perspective means your vantage point. You're looking from a certain way. You've always seen it this whole way your whole life, from this viewpoint. And then you move over here and it's like, what? So can you share a little about how the Lord has taught you about perspectives through art missions?
Sure. So I know that you had mentioned that part of today's topic is also a little bit about cultural sensitivity, and kind of like when we are interacting with other cultures, how to maneuver things that might be sensitive,
Yeah.
and how to be sensitive to other, that sort of thing. So I was just gonna, to answer your question, I was gonna share a little story of to reference, I was saying that I had lived overseas for about a year, in this one particular place. And it really was my first experience living in a different country. And I had just, shortly arrived. Maybe it was like a couple months in or something like that. And I was living in community. So there was several other people from other countries we were living together, and we were all believers. And we were ministering within an inner city is what we were doing. Well, this particular moment was, something had taken place where previous tenants had illegally hooked up the electricity. And because here we are, we move in, we recognize we're not being charged for our electricity. We look into it, we realize, oh no, it's hooked up illegally, and one of our neighbors is actually experiencing more outage than, and stuff. And so we wanted to right the wrong.
Yeah.
And so obviously authorities were notified about it, and in the notification, then they came and they needed to unhook it and then you hook it up correctly, and with that, anyways, maybe this is a longer story than I thought.
Right.
But I was used to my culture being here in the States, and for the most part, and I recognize this isn't across the board, but for the most part, I was used to, if something happens, maintenance wise, you call maintenance guy up. Within 24 hours, you probably have somebody coming by to do something. And, and if it's not happening the way you want it to, you get on the phone again and you get it, that's kind of the American way.
Yes,
is
it is. Yes, it
we
is.
want it done the way we want it done. Do not inconvenience me.
Right.
And anyways, where we were, things didn't work that way. And so the guy came to unhook where it had been hooked up. And this happened to be on a Friday late afternoon, and he did not hook it back up the way it needed to be hooked up. And we kind of confronted a little bit, to ask some questions. And we find out that was a whole different department that we had to notify and get an appointment and so on and so forth. And of course, it's Friday late afternoon,
Yeah.
So this being said, and then of course there was just a lot of different things, the way to handle those kinds of things. And of course that happens here too in the States, recognizing, but I was dealing with a lot of culture shock in this moment, and I was extremely unaware of my own emotional place at that timing. And I got very angry very quickly and kind of told the maintenance person what I thought and was not very nice. And then, of course, my housemates, who were also from other countries and were trying to maneuver the situation and so on, and didn't know these things either. They were having to maneuver that, but now they were having to maneuver me because I was like, what, we're out of, it was turning out that we were out of electricity for a couple of weeks by the time it actually got fixed. So I was, so needless to say,
That's a lot.
I made a very hard situation worse
Yeah.
because I wasn't able to see that I needed to recognize that I was looking at everything through my own perspective. I was looking at everything through maybe what my experiences had been in my country or my city.
Yep.
And I was not taking into consideration the way things were done in that country, in that city, for those people. I also wasn't taking consideration the other cultures that I was living with and maybe how they would need to handle or how they were experiencing things. And I was just looking at myself and my own inconvenience. And
Wow.
in that moment, there was, yeah, it was hard, but there was, through the time, thankfully, because we were all believers and we were there for a purpose, and we set out to really, work through conflict. And so we worked through it, and I was able to come to that understanding that I had not handled that very well at all. And I needed to have the ability to ask questions and understand the culture I was in and not demand my own cultural
Wow.
needs or my, expectations
Yeah.
on something. Don't put that on someone else. So to answer your
Wow.
question, sorry,
Yeah.
that was a bit of a long
No,
story.
perfect. Oh my
But
gosh.
to answer your question, learning about perspective has been long in coming for me, as far as just these moments of like almost like on the job training of
Yeah.
recognizing that my perspective, though valid, is not the only perspective. And
I like what you said.
my way of doing something is not the only way of doing something. And it's also, and this is kind of a pride buster, it has been for me, is it's not just it's not the only way, but it's my way is not always the right way either. So just because I may think this is the right way, another culture, another country, if I were to actually have taken the time to ask questions to gain understanding from their perspective, I might have understood, maybe why things went the way they go. Why was it set up the way it was set up to, the different departments or whatever and stuff. I don't know. But at the time, I had no understanding of it. And so these are things that I've had to learn on the job, basically, of that what I ended up doing was I became, as we call, the ugly American, demanding my way, rather than really taking the time to go, okay, this is a hard situation. Let's dial it back, Lisa.
Yeah, yeah.
and learn from this, and
Right.
actually recognize that you're in someone else's country and you need to start there,
Yeah.
not start where I came from.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, because you're right. There are countries that have different, like they'll have scheduled power outages, on a rotating basis. There is just no electricity from 10 till noon and from 5 till 7 or whatever, depending
Right.
on the week. And yeah, if we want to broaden our perspective, I would think that also enlarges one's heart for understanding interrelational causes and the realities of living in another location,
Right.
and the people who are there all around you that you can that you're getting to be with. Wow. And then, I mean, fast forward to nowadays, you seem to be so adaptable, fluid, like as people are inviting you in, you do a lot of research before you go, but you're also super flexible. And these things can still surprise you, but you have a
Mhm.
much like more measured response, I think. And part of that is just growing as a disciple, and part of that is experience, and
Yeah.
part of that is
The flexibility thing is a
yeah.
really big thing to have, and just recognizing that the more we're flexible, the more we're open to doing something differently than maybe
Mhm.
we would have normally done it, even if we've done something before. Um, that can actually open up more possibilities and open up more conversation. And the whole, to me, conversation is a huge part of
Mm.
this, of building relationship. And um, in fact, I have another story.
Yeah.
Uh, there was another time where I was living abroad in a different place for a year, and I was serving uh the local church that I was with. I was serving them through painting live during worship services. And I was doing it quite often, and I didn't really know what to do with the paintings, but I knew that the paintings were for the people. But I had not really heard, I try to listen to God as to, what he's wanting, what, this kind of thing, but I really didn't know what to do with the paintings. And people would come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey, are you selling that painting?" Or, "What are you going to do with that painting?" And I just really didn't know. And I kept having to say, "Well, let me pray about this. I don't know." And because I was living there for a long period of time, and not only being an art minister, but I'm also um, a professional artist in that I need an income. And so I was just not sure what to do about it.
Mm.
And I kept thinking, well, what would I charge for the paintings I was doing if I was to charge? Normally when I go out on a short trip, like a couple weeks or a month or whatever, and if I'm painting a painting, uh I just give it away to who God tells me to give it to and stuff. This, it just felt different because I was living there and I just didn't
Yeah.
know what to do. Um, and I realized if I put a price on the paintings like I would if I was selling them for income, this was going to cause an issue.
Yeah.
And the reason why was because the people that I was serving um, in this place, one, they were a different culture than me, two, in different ethnicity, etc. Two, they were, a good deal of them were low income, and some of them were even homeless. And I realized that if I put a price on paintings, maybe they couldn't afford it. And then would I offend people?
Mm.
Or I knew that the paintings were for them. So what would I do? And should I just give them away? That sort of thing. And then I wasn't sure about that either, because if I just gave it to people, I wasn't sure. So I just
Yeah.
just really spent time asking God. And I think that's always the first thing to do.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I began to recognize that I needed to approach it differently than I had ever done before. I had either just given paintings away, or I had charged, of the price I would charge, to sell a painting,
Hmm.
I would normally sell. And uh I so I got this idea, and I kind of ran it by my commissioning group, and then I ran it by the pastors of this church that I was serving with. And when I got the heads up and the go, I realized, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. And what God revealed to me through this was, yes, I was to sell the paintings, but I was to not put a price on them. And so the people were able to, if they were connecting with a painting and they really wanted it, then I would tell them, there's no price on it, but if whatever you can pay, whatever God's speaking to you about to pay, then that's what the price is. Even if it's nothing.
That's
okay.
beautiful.
And that left it up to them to talk to God about that. Now, here's the crazy thing, and it was out of my comfort zone, but this was the crazy thing. Some people were able to pay more than I would have charged. Some people couldn't pay anything. Okay. Some people could pay, a little bit stuff. Some people were listening to someone, maybe their neighbor or whatever, like, oh, they really loved that painting, but they weren't sure if they should go up and approach me. They were kind of intimidated, whatever it might be. And that person went up, paid for the painting so that I could give it to the other person.
Wow.
So all of this is going on. And then I let them know when it was all done. I'll tell you this, every single painting went over the year. And when it came down to it, all of the monies that came from those paintings, I gave back to the church. So I didn't keep any of it. Man. It wasn't for me. It was for them. The whole thing was for them. And in this process, I remember asking God, why are we doing this? To me, it didn't make sense. Why not just give them the paintings? That kind of thing. I'm not keeping any money, that kind of thing. And then what began to be revealed was he was teaching them how to tithe. He was teaching them that
Wow.
out of their lack, even whatever they had, it's the widow with the 2 mites or whatever it was, I'm getting that wrong probably, but
trust and faith,
but
and
that like,
wow.
I will give whatever I can, Lord, because that's all I have. That's what he was teaching them. And they didn't know that.
No.
But even down to people paying for someone else and getting that blessing and words being spoken. And that's the thing, is that, like, the paintings that I do when I paint live, it's paintings that I'm getting a message, an image from God, and I'm painting that, and it's speaking a message to them. And so here are these people, like, and what was beautiful about it was then not only I'm giving the paintings to them, but God had me like pay attention to even how I gave the paintings. I honored people by wrapping the paintings up, presenting them in a way that was honoring them, and not just like here,
Right.
And so it was just this whole thing that I would have missed if I had just done it the way I had done it, some other way, or, I'm used to doing it this way, I'll do it this way, or whatever. And so that whole thing of like, seeking God first, paying attention to listening and paying attention to the people that you're serving, what's going on, God's going to reveal those things. And he's so creative, way more creative than I could ever be. I would have never thought of that stuff on my own. And here the people were learning how to tithe. And here's another side note, because remember, part of my questioning at the beginning was, but I also need an income.
Right.
And he had other people outside of this setting commission me to do paintings. So I was selling paintings on the side. And then also there was a couple other people who came up, and during the last 6 months I was there, every week they were donating to me into my ministry. And these were not, again, these were low income people, and God was teaching them something that I didn't know they even needed, you
Wow.
know, or whatever. And later when I debriefed with the pastors of the church, upon my going to be leaving the time, you know, after my time there, um, they were in a place of just awe of what God had done, through all of that, through art, you know, through something that maybe some people may see as, well, art's a luxury, I can't own that, whatever. And here's this opportunity where God actually, not only blessed people with art, and the message through the art, but also, blessed the church and the people themselves by them learning, that all God asks of us is to show up. Just show up with him, partner with him. He's got stuff he's doing. He's already doing stuff. And if we just show up. And so it was me showing up, but it was also the people themselves being willing
Yeah.
to just show up
Yeah.
and partner with God, because people were going to be blessed through that.
This is a two-way conversation everywhere you go,
Yeah.
not just a one-way
Yeah.
conversation. Wow. That's incredible. I'm gonna open it up to some Q&A, just for, you know, at this time. Does anybody have a question that you want to unmute yourself and ask Lisa? And we can just wait a second and ask. I'm trying to look, see if anybody's
I'll ask a question.
okay.
There was mention of ministering outside of the church. What do you see are the major differences for you ministering outside the church versus with a church group or something like that?
Okay. I would say for as many of, as you know, different types of people, that's how crazy different you have to look at it, you know, like, let's see if I can think of, I have some friends who owned a cafe, and they were desiring to just give into their community, in different ways, and to love on their community, and through the cafe. And so I came over and did some art within the cafe. And what I did was, there was one day where I set up a painting, like a pre-designed painting, and then anybody who came into the cafe, I just invited them to sit down and paint with me. And so anybody who came in to buy their coffee and their bagel or whatever, you know, sat down and painted with me, paint some colors within the design I had already put on the canvas, and we chatted and so on and so forth. And of course the people are like, wow, you know, what is this about? And, you know, that kind of thing. And then, you know, so little things like that. I had, one trip I had friends who were artists, all different types of artists, who lived in the same city, area, I should say, big metropolis area. And I went to that city and I spent time with each of those artists. None of them, you know, they were not believers, but spent the time just listening, just learning about their art and encouraging their art, you know. And that was in the United States. But there was one country I went to where there was a man that I was friends with, that he was an artist himself, and his ministry, he was trying to connect with other artists in this country, and this was not a English speaking country, and they were of a different religion and than Christianity, and so he kind of used the here's the artist from the United States coming to visit, kind of thing, to bring me along with him. And in a way, I think it was a way of kind of creating a buffer for him to build relationship with these other artists. And so in that, I'm there asking questions and learning about their art and seeing their studios and that sort of thing. And that's all it was just helping him gain some confidence that that's what he could be doing, and learning from them, learning about their art, and getting the kind of opportunity to start relationship with them, that sort of thing. As far as like cultural sensitivities and stuff like that, it's a huge deal about recognizing, it's just like in your own community, people who are not believers, how do you interact with them and just respect who they are, respect, and really you start from asking questions, learning about them, opening up the conversation to build relationship. And art can be such a great way to do that, because I think it kind of knocks down walls in a way, get people to color together,
Yeah,
that
they don't
kind
have
of
to
thing.
speak the same language even to
Yeah.
do that.
I've done that many
Mhm.
times in countries where I didn't speak their language, but took a big piece of butcher paper out and some crayons, and you're thinking, children, no, adults, and just sit down and get people to sit down with you, and
Yeah.
you're just talking and learning and stuff and whatever. It can kind of diffuse things, and but I think it all just starts from having a humble heart and an attitude of, I'm here to learn from you.
Yeah.
I'm here to learn about you. I'm here for you. This isn't about me. This isn't, I'm not here to do my thing, my little shtick or anything like that. In fact, any of the trips I take, my the people I have relationship with, my hosts that are in the country or the place I'm going to, everything is built through what is their needs. So any of the art I do, any of that, it's not because this is what I do, and
Right.
so whatever, this is, you get the pick from A, B, or C and I'll do it, kind of thing. It's more about what are the needs, what's the conversation that's happening with people, what are we trying to, even like this is you had a particular topic.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes I'll ask people, is there a particular topic that you're hoping to connect with people?
Yeah.
And so I'll try to tailor the art situation around, around that topic or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like
I don't
that.
know if that's answering your question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's that God is site specific thing again, like we
Mhm.
can't jump into a new situation thinking, oh, that's what I did before. I mean, we have tools we can take forward with us and our own, how God hones us in our ability to adapt and to learn and to grow. We get to take that with us too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But as far as what actually unfolds, you talk to the leaders about it first. You
Mhm.
try to figure out or listen to where they're at.
Yeah.
And even then, you have to be like flexible for the actual thing. Like when we went overseas on our trip with our little team, we went and we were going to do some art during the Sunday morning service with the people of the church. And the pastor in that other country was like, I just want to warn you that I don't really think that many people will participate in the art making, because it's not culturally, I would be surprised, because the people are shy. And he was just trying to be really kind and warn us, like, don't get your hopes up. I don't know if you'll really get the participation that you're hoping for. And we were like totally open. We're like, oh, that's okay. We won't pressure anyone. And we had it little signs that were translated into the language of, I think we had said some instruction like, draw or paint what is on your heart, or whatever. And the pastor was guiding them through that service as well. But almost everybody actually participated. It was so surprising. So you never know what God is going to do. And just kind of, and we had actually prayed as a team many times beforehand, like, is there an image that you want us to pre-draw on the canvas, as is our custom kind of most of the time, a lot of the time? None of the 5 of us were sensing anything. And so rather than forcing something or pretending that we had heard from God, which don't do that, we were just like, I didn't get anything. Did you get anything? I didn't get anything. Okay, I guess we're supposed to have blank things. And the people literally drew and painted what was on their hearts, which was culturally very different from what we would have made.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. Yeah. Fluid, flexible,
Right.
spirit led.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's good to ask a lot of questions, I think, ahead of time, during and after. It's just coming with that heart of, I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
And but yeah, being flexible is a huge thing. I had one time where I was in a country that they didn't speak English. I was working with an interpreter, and I was having them do an art activity while I was kind of speaking and stuff. And I and then I ended up doing a painting at the same time. And so I was doing, there's lots going on. It was a small group of people, and I was doing a painting, and I had kind of brought it up, and I had it pre-drawn, and I'm doing it quick because that was my thing. and I get done with it, and I think everything's fine. And then there was some chatter in the corner, and there was an older woman who was talking to the interpreter, and it seemed like there was something wrong. Like, I don't know. I didn't know, though. I couldn't tell. And then eventually the interpreter spoke up to me in English and expressed that what I had created on the painting ended up, it was triggering the woman, and it was causing her some, she was kind of offended, but also just causing her some grief. And so they began to talk about it with me. And the image I had created was, I had no idea that it would cause something,
No,
but
of course not.
it was people washing each other's feet. But the vantage point that I had done it as ended up triggering this woman, because this particular country had experienced some pretty traumatic occupation in the past, where this older woman had experienced some harsh abuse. And she was reacting to the way the picture looked. And I was just gutted inside, thinking it was complete opposite of
Aw.
what I was trying to convey.
Yeah.
The whole message was about, serving and love, and God loves us, and, this kind of thing. And it had taken it in a totally different direction. But going back to the being flexible part, as I was listening to her heart, of course, through the interpreter, but listening, I just really asked God, what do you want me to do in this? How do I do this? What is your heart, Lord? And in the moment, he gave me helped me see, if I were to turn the painting upside down, the image changed to create a different look with the people who were on the painting, on the image. And it didn't look so oppressive, if that's, I don't know, I'm trying to be careful how I'm saying this, but and as I did that, the woman, like, physically, her countenance changed. She was like, wow, and she got it.
Oh, wow.
And she connected with what I was trying to share and teach. And then she was talking to the interpreter, and then it got conveyed back to me of like, oh, that makes all the difference. And so then in that, as that came out, the whole group, we got to talk about the whole, what had taken place, and what was the real message of God in that, and all of that. And so, and it ended up being actually such a moment of intimacy with all of us,
Yeah.
that once again, I felt compelled, and I just asked the woman if she would want the painting. And she, with tears in her eyes, was like, yes. And what was interesting to me through the whole thing was that here I came in, it's not that I didn't know about the country itself. What I didn't know was this woman's background. And I didn't know how my painting was going to affect her. Now, sometimes that's just going to happen. We were talking about earlier, sometimes mistakes happen that we can't predict, but it's how we handle them in the moment that is, and that's where that flexibility is, that humble heart, asking God right away, what do I do? Seeking that, like, loving first, and checking your motives. Like, I could have been offended myself of like, that's not what I meant, or whatever, but instead, or I could have just dismissed it or whatever, but instead really connecting in and being sensitive to her, and then being open to doing it differently. And in that, what it did was it spoke to her so like healing was speaking to her, that she actually wanted the painting, as opposed to at first she was like, not only did she not want to see the painting, she was kind of upset at me for doing something like that, and so in that, it's like that whole thing of like being open, and recognizing that we're there for other people, we're there to serve and prefer them. And so that flexibility of doing something different, even if it's, sometimes like what you shared, it can be something of like, okay, I'm just going to completely change what I was going to do, kind of thing. Or something like with what was taking place in this moment for me was, in the moment, I need to change what I was going to do.
And that's really washing people's feet, what you did. Because as artists, you guys know how personal it is when we've planned art, we got the art supplies, we made a little mock-up, we've been thinking about this for a long time. This is not some spontaneous little, oh, I'll just throw something out there. I mean, this is a trip. This is a lot of preparation, prayer, thought, care, figuring out your color palette.
Yeah.
I mean, and then to be told that like the thing that you've put so much time and planning into is having an effect on somebody like that. And then washing her feet anyway by like serving her, asking the Lord what needs to happen in the next moment.
Yeah.
And being receptive and obeying that, even though that wasn't the composition that you planned, it was upside down, literally.
Right.
That takes such humility and openness and like that servant's heart. I mean, wow. Yeah.
It was hard in the moment, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
I
But
bet
it
it
was, it was definitely,
Wow.
it's something I've never forgotten, of recognizing that first off, being flexible in the moment, to change things up.
Yeah.
Don't, don't like dig in.
Right.
But then also, that sensitivity to others, that sometimes to recognize that what I had planned, the whole lesson, and I'm having them do things, I'm doing things, I'm talking about this, I've got the Bible out, we're all like whatever. And in that moment, God was like, actually, Lisa, what I want to do is I want to touch her heart right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm speechless. Yeah, thank you for telling that story.
Mm.
Man.
Lori had a question.
Yeah, please. Who else had a question?
Lori.
Okay, Lori. Oh, could you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Can you speak to how this model could be used to minister to first-term missionaries, or other ministry leaders, that may be experiencing burnout? First-term missionaries sometimes have a very difficult time, and then as time moves forward, then and you're churning it out and doing the things and all that, burnout can set in. So I'm interested in how this could be used to support and minister to them.
Mm.
I think it's really important to recognize, first and foremost, our relationship with the Lord. Being as close to Jesus as we can be in conversation, to recognize where we are at emotionally and spiritually in settings, and how to get prayer and counsel in those moments when we're really struggling. That's part of why having a commissioning group, or a support group, or around you is really important, for that. But yeah, just being able to recognize that what is it that you're actually needing in a moment when you're struggling and exhausted in things. Maybe you're being triggered by stuff, that sort of thing. Thinking back to my time, that first time living overseas and doing ministry, and I was actually at that timing was in a ministry school that was like a 6-month ministry mission school. And that's where I was being triggered, like the story I shared about the electricity and stuff. And it was lots of things and had no awareness of it. And it was during that time that I don't know if can I speak of a particular organization I want to share about a book. I don't know if that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard of Youth with a Mission, YWAM as they're called. There's a book, and I can get Jesse the name and the author for sure, because I don't remember the author at the moment, but the book is called Re-Entry. And I read that early on, and it really talks about when we come back home from doing stuff, or when we're out there doing stuff, and how that can affect us. And as we're experiencing all of this stuff, good stuff and sometimes really hard stuff, it is affecting us, and we need to know how to process those things. And that book was really good for me to kind of a first step of learning that it's even a thing, that coming back from a trip or from a time living abroad, how it affects how we get culture shock when we're in a different culture. Our culture is kind of bucking up against the culture that we're now in. And then when we come back, how what we've experienced is now bucking up against our own culture. Actually, we get like a reverse culture shock, and it can really be stressful. And I just kind of learned that there's a process for each of us, and everybody's going to be different on this as to what you need to do for yourself, to be good to yourself, to be able to process through all of the experiences that you've had. That's why I will debrief with my hosts, the people that I'm connecting with, over on a trip. I will debrief with them. I will also debrief with my commissioning group when I come home. And then if I need additional debriefing, I mean, it all depends on the situation and how it has affected me. It's very important to be able to have that trusted group around you to be able to share things, because sometimes stuff can, I mean, even the really, like I said, even the really, really good stuff, it can affect us. And oftentimes when we're coming back into our lives, the people at home don't know how to connect or how to relate or whatever, and it can be hard. I don't know if am I answering your question, or is there something more detailed, because I want to make sure I do answer.
No, actually, I've experienced all of those things that you're talking about. So you're spot on with what you're saying. But my question is how all those things are great. However, that does not take away the need that's actually there on the field currently. So how could someone like myself support them through art? So I have been in that position. I have gone through all of those things myself. So that being the case, I'd like to see how potentially art ministry can help as a support for other people, not for something I'm currently experiencing or know somebody specifically, but I did know a lot of people that needed that support that didn't really have it the way would have been helpful.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense. If that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I have found, so I would say there has been a few trips that I have taken where when I have arrived, my hosts who are there, they're long-term missionaries, and it's brought to my attention that they are experiencing burnout and they are having a hard time, and it's really hard for them to connect, and they're just frazzled or whatever. A huge part of, like, I'm going to try to answer this a couple of ways. One, I'm going to say, as far as the art ministry stuff, as far as doing art and so on, oftentimes, again, I want to tailor the art activity that I'm doing to the people that they're ministering to. And part of that is to help relieve a bit of the load for the time I'm there. And so, and in fact, it's a huge, huge deal for many pastors and missionaries that they don't, this is the one sermon they don't have to prepare. This is the small group meeting that they didn't have to also prepare for, on top of the other thing they're doing or whatever. And so that in and of itself is a huge deal, to recognize that you're coming alongside them, you're lifting them up in that moment, and it's a huge deal. And so the art situation, the art activities that you're doing, that sort of thing with the people they're serving, can be hand tailored to where your hosts, the missionaries, the pastors, they aren't having to do a whole lot in that moment, and they can kind of just like,
Yeah.
they can trust you, you've got this, kind of thing. You're taking it. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, because I do everything through relationship, I spend a lot of time connecting in conversations. So just to share a little bit, there's been a few times where the wife of the couple that I was staying with frazzled, just wife, mom, missionary, leading Bible studies, doing this, doing that, et cetera, and really it comes down to being a friend and giving her that time to speak, to share, just listen to what needs to be said. And oftentimes it will happen because you're not the everyday person there. So they trust you because you're a friend, but you're also not, that person they have to be with every day. So they can just pour it out, and you're there to listen and
Safe.
pray for them. One of the things I have often done is, when it comes to art relating to, in that kind of a moment, is if the person themselves is creative, I will try to maybe get them doing something for themselves, just that person and me, that kind of thing. Sometimes I've often done, I don't know if you've spoke of personal prayer art with this group.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do personal prayer art with them, in sometimes, just asking God something very, very specific that I can give them, that he's speaking, that can encourage. Sometimes it comes through, I get postcards made of the paintings I do, and I'll bring postcards with. And sometimes God does that, he's like, give this postcard and talk about the message of this. And so that will, be something that can do it. But a good deal of it, honestly, is just that conversation, just the listening and sharing, just be a friend to them. Even if it's like again, say a couple, I've been on, there was one particular trip where the couple I was staying with, unbeknownst to me until I actually got there, I did not realize that they themselves were having some marital struggles. And really through the whole process, it was just God utilizing me, my presence, utilizing me to just encourage their marriage. and speak into it. And again, and I ended up doing a painting on my own, like in my room. I was like, busily with, they didn't know and stuff. And I created a painting that was very, very specific for them as a gift. And it spoke to them and their marriage, and again, I didn't realize I was even going to be in that when I arrived, and so a lot of it is conversation you're having with God, listening in to what's happening, paying attention to the conversations you're having with them. Many of the people I've gone to, they have kids, and there's struggles with the children, and so again, it comes down to being there, helping out, that sort of thing, however you can do it to minister in that moment, recognizing that you're not there to be someone's savior. Obviously,
No.
you're not their counselor, you're not, any of that. They will have those people in their lives, but for that moment that you're there, I would say early days with my travels, there was somebody abroad who actually said something to me that blew me away, and I've taken that with me everywhere I go. And that was, Lisa, just your presence here is shifting the atmosphere. And I did not, it's not something I'm like, ooh, I'm all that. No, it's more of when you come with that heart that is God, I am here to serve, and I'm here for them. What I want to hear your heart for them, in their words, in their cries, their struggles. I had one friend, her youngest son was just struggling so much with, different disabilities and things he had going on, and she was struggling with it, and to just be there, and support her with what I could, for that little bit of time. Huge deal,
Yeah.
huge deal. Another big thing, many of those people, email conversations back and forth, being a lifeline for them, just, yeah, in fact, that same person, over the years, we have email back and forth. Just, she seems to be able to, she'll share, and then God gives me the words and the scriptures and the encouragement, and maybe send an image of one of my paintings that's speaking life or something. And next thing you know, she's, doing the same for me or whatever. And so it's, yeah, I don't know. I hope that's helping a little bit.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I did have a similar experience where a couple came over on a weekend to Europe, okay, on a weekend, and they brought 2 duffel bags with them full of mustard and peanut butter and ramen noodles and chocolate chips and brown sugar. And I felt like it was the best Christmas ever, and it wasn't even Christmas. And just their presence, just the fact that they had come there just to say, hey, we're here to help. And they didn't do anything in particular special other than that. So that was a good reminder for that. But some of the other things that you mentioned, that's very helpful.
I've always recognized, and this is something Jesse's always said and stuff, is it's really not about the art.
Right.
Oftentimes it's really just about being there for people, and the art gets to be a great way to, again, it can be great icebreakers, it can speak healing, it can, there's all kinds of things that art can do, but it's really not about the art. It's actually about showing up for people and listening to their hearts, and recognizing what it is. So every single trip I do is so different from the ones before it, because it's hand tailored for those people.
It seems like the art can be a bridge for common experience, just life, no matter what culture.
Yeah.
It, like you said, an icebreaker, and just to be a bridge, just, whether it ever comes out or it's brought into the conversation or whatever, it can be a good bringer together of people, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Art is so good at that. Yeah, and it's just good to keep that hierarchy of possibilities in mind. Like when you're, the question about like a first term missionary or something,
Mhm.
to realize it is, it's really about hearts. It's not about any kind of vehicle or
Yeah.
the thing you make the bridge with. It's about connecting
Yeah.
person to person. Yeah. Well, with that, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was so meaningful to just listen to these stories.
Mhm.
I've seen your absolute fierce determination to be humble and to not take offense. There's these different cultural things that we can't control. I've even seen, if an accusation is leveled or something, you are just like, Lord, I know you're doing something here. And I just want to glorify you. And I want to be humble. And I want to learn. And I want you to flow through me for peace. And I've seen this over the years, like time and time again. And it's been like, so like on the one hand, difficult, but on the other hand, like the Spirit is empowering you so mightily in those moments. And like I said before, brings us onto the chat at just the right time or whatever it is, like, and we're praying. And it's just been an incredible way for me to serve people I've never met through what you're doing. And it's an honor and a privilege. And you're a missionary to missionaries. And yeah.
Actually, that right there, what you just said, I think more than anything, that's what I have learned about my role is that, and so thank you again for bringing up those questions there at the end, because I'm finding more and more that the calling on my life is to be a missionary to missionaries. And it's I just get to come alongside what they're already doing and lift them up for a little while and bless them. Yeah.
And I know you, and you're not going to box God in on that either. You're
Yeah,
not going to be like,
yeah.
okay, that's my new tagline.
Right.
I can only do stuff if it's for the
know.
missionaries. Like
Yeah.
that's not anything, but your heart is just, God is so fluid with what he's doing with your life and how, it's just beautiful, literally beautiful.
Thank you.
You can see Lisa's art. I will put a link to her blog in the comments in this step, okay, in the instructions for watching this video, the one link that you sent me. So I'll just say, here it is. You can click on here and you can read about some of the stuff that you've been doing all these years and see images. And yeah, it's just been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
With
Thank
that,
you.
I'm gonna bid you adieu, and we're gonna have our dinner. So thank you,
Enjoy.
all of you on the East Coast. It's 9:30 right now, and you're like, kudos. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless you all. Bye-bye.